63 years.
Wow.
And the answer is not very far, because we have not we've not solved the problem of ending racism.
Got that right.
Right? Because legislation doesn't fix anything. So
Still
that's what
just
we're
as
working
wrong.
on.
So this is the first 6 days. We've given you a lot of.
I'm sorry. I want to backtrack really quickly. So I was trying to tag people on Facebook. Facebook had an issue, couldn't save the tag. So if you're joining us live on our page, or excuse me, on my page, you're just joining us. So I want to say welcome.
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 Hi, guys.
I am, you're probably my Facebook friend. So I'm Taiwo Kujichagulia-Seitu. This is my lovely twin sister, Kehinde. This is our wonderful, lovely mother, Sistah Kujichagulia. So thank you for joining us on this last day. And if you're on Kehinde's page, you had time to do this, which was get like a journal. I have my journal. I'm ready to take notes. Which was get something to take notes with.
I'm gonna get mine.
Oh my gosh!
This phenomenal woman
Start.
right here. This phenomenal educator right here. For you all, for us all, squeezed 700 years of history, facts, into 17 minutes. So that we can get through this today and really have an honest conversation about how this all started, why we're in the present condition that we're in.
That's what
so I just, man, hold up. I was so happy last night talking to her on the phone. So just, if you don't have something to take notes with, grab something to take notes with. Please, 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 if you have any comments, we love clarifying questions. So if you have any clarifying questions, please throw them into the comments. We will look at the questions and try to answer those questions, because it's knowledge that's going to save us.
So, ideally we had planned for this to be a 30-minute piece. So I want to apologize, because I know today it's not going to be, because I'm going to take up a few minutes of your time trying to go through this information. We spent the first 6 days giving you pieces of this puzzle. Now we want to give you the big picture into which all these puzzle pieces fit. Okay, this is 700 years of history. We're trying to squeeze into 17 minutes, so it's going to be rushed. I apologize for that. It can't be in depth because we have to get through 700 years, but I want it clear for people to really understand why we are where we are today. How did it get like this? And where did it all start? And the epiphany came to me. The ancestors were talking to me last night, because I always ask them to tell me what to do and think and say. And they reminded me how we got here. And it dawned on me that this all started with a pandemic. All of this started with a pandemic called the Bubonic Plague of 1346. 1346. Stop calling it the Black Plague. Remember, we're not doing that. We're not using the word black to say things negative. It's the Bubonic Plague of 1346. And the Bubonic Plague occurred in Europe, not Africa, not Asia, not any of those places. It occurred in Europe because, how ironic, people did not wash their hands. Here we are again in the midst of a pandemic where people do not wash their hands. That's why we're here. Infections. So this whole thing started with the Bubonic Plague. Ironically, when the Bubonic Plague hit Europe, it killed half. Imagine that. Half the population died. There's a song about it. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. People thought that they could take the flower, the posy, put it in their pockets, it would heal the Bubonic Plague. It didn't. Ashes, ashes, they all fell down. So half the population now is dead. Europe is disease-ridden. It's impoverished. It's poor. It's filthy. Ironically, while Europe is dying from the Bubonic Plague, the rest of the world is thriving. There are great empires, great nations, not tribes. Great, that's another racist word we've been giving. There are great nations and empires that are thriving across the globe, especially in Africa. Africa's empires are creating gold, ivory, bronze, diamonds are coming out of Africa from the Mali Empire, Benin Empire, the Ghana Empire, the Monomotapa Empire, Great Zimbabwe, Southern Africa. In the Western Hemisphere, we're looking at silver, turquoise, gold coming out of the Incas, the Aztecs, the Toltecs, who are all giving birth from the Olmecs and the Mayas. In China, from the Shang Dynasty up through the Ming Dynasty, we are seeing spices and silk and all kind of wonderful things flowing from all these great empires. However, Europe is dying. So Europe is jealous, envious, and angry. Europe is angry because now the Arabs are controlling this northern area, North African area. Remember, it went from being Kush to Kemet to Egypt. Now, to this day, it's called the United Arab Republic because Arabs are now in that area. So Christians went into these areas and they started holy wars. The holy wars are called the Crusades. The Christian holy wars that start from 1099 and go all the way up to 1492. Woo, that date should sound familiar. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Anyway, we've got the Crusades now. So we have Christian warriors, mercenaries going into Northern Africa and Southern Eurasia to try to take these areas, who are now heavily dominated by the Arabs. Well, they are not able to retake the areas, but what the Crusades do is it allows the Crusaders, these Christian mercenaries, to come in and raid the African temples, to raid the African monastery, universities, to raid all the centers of wisdom. And this results in the theft and confiscation and whitewashing of all African technologies and sciences of the African and Muslim nations. So all this stolen knowledge, all this stolen technology advances European society. This leads to the European Renaissance. The Renaissance of 1300 to 1600s. African wisdom and knowledge and technology is what pulls Europeans out of poverty and filth and ignorance. And when this is done, that's the end of the so-called Middle Ages. Remember all these things in history we weren't paying close attention to? Okay. So since the Crusades, Europeans have now had the technology and the weaponry to circumnavigate the globe. The Moors, from the African Moors, we taught them all of these wonderful things to do. Since Arabs are dominating the enslavement, capitalism trade in the Eastern Hemisphere around the Mediterranean and Southern Eurasia, Caucasians and Europeans decide that they are going to look to colonize the entire Western Hemisphere. So now enslavement capitalism shifts from the Eastern Hemisphere to the Western Hemisphere. And Caucasians are able to do this now because now they have the technology that they learned from Africans to circumnavigate the globe. Once they have the technology and the weaponry, we know that the cannons now are perfected and being utilized in Europe. We know guns are perfected and being utilized in Europe. All these things enable Europe to crawl out of poverty by stealing all the land in the Western Hemisphere, stealing all the land, slaughtering all the indigenous populations, and enslaving the Africans to increase their wealth. African history and culture is whitewashed. The annihilations of all indigenous populations now ensues, and now European, Caucasian wealth begins to escalate as the annihilation and genocide of African First World peoples continues to grow. Okay, so how was this able to be done? So Caucasians did something brilliant. They united all their separate groups into one so-called, and here's the invention of race, to one so-called race. So they invent this concept of race, Caucasians, Europeans, in order to confiscate, rob, steal, annihilate, pilferage, enslave. They invent the concept of race and appoint themselves as the superior race, and then say that all the other so-called races are inferior. This myth This total myth and lie is created to justify theft of lands and annihilations of people. And this myth of white supremacy remains with us today. So if Caucasians are considered supreme, this is when Crusades, after the end of the Crusades, into the Middle Ages. This is the beginning of colonization. This is how colonization starts. All the whites can come together and invent the so-called white race, and all the other races are considered inferior. So now labels are given to other peoples so that the world will not object to their being exploited, will not object to their being terrorized, traumatized, enslaved. So we are called savages, pagans, beast. All these concepts of white supremacy and black inferiority evolve so that colonization can be successful. All of these labels are put on us, these words, so that people don't see us as humans anymore. We are dehumanized. We are demonized. We are criminalized in order for white psychopathy, racism, the myth of white supremacy to be sanitized, so that their barbaric activities are exonerated, so that everything that they do is excused. These unspeakable evils that have been done to Africans, all indigenous and first world people, are because of capitalist greed. Let's be very clear, it's all because of capitalist greed. Okay. So this language of racism must evolve in order to reinforce, solidify the concepts of white psychopathy from generation to generation. So I think we need to revisit right now once more the definition of psychopathy. Again, psychopathy is a narcissistic, infantile, mental abnormality of grandiosity, egocentricity, concepts of supremacy, and a failure to learn from the past. Don't forget that. That's how we got here. It is characterized by an extreme disregard for the social, civil, and human rights of others. Psychopathy. Okay. So instead of acknowledging white psychopathy, we are given the myth of whites are supreme. They're godly. They're innocent. They're wonderful. Still in dictionaries today. We started with that. Concepts have not gone anywhere. They have just exaggerated and they have grown. In the meantime, so has the annihilation and slaughter and genocide of Africans and first world peoples. So this technology is able to get the colonists a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. A lot of immigrants from the Western Hemisphere are now migrating to what is called the New World. Remember, there's no America yet. There's no United States. These are still colonies of England. Well, eventually, here comes 1776 and the Revolution of 1776 against England. So the American Revolution now, the colonists all get together and unite to make one United States. They kick the British out. The British are no longer able, England's no longer able to ship its criminals and convicts to the United States. What do? They start shipping them to Australia. That's how the birth of Australia starts, and all the African Aboriginal people in Australia begin to be slaughtered. Anyway, as enslavement, capitalism increases, the annihilation of the indigenous peoples also increases. This is called the war against the Indians. This may be one little tiny paragraph from your history book. This war to annihilate the Indians, to destroy the buffalo, to give them chicken pox, to give them every disease so that they die and take their land is in full swing. The enslavement of Africans, human trafficking of human beings from Africa to the Western Hemisphere is in full swing. This is how we get the Caribbean islands. Right now we think of the Caribbean islands as vacation spots. How did they start though? The Caribbean islands were where the colonizers would use these tiny islands to train the Africans that were trafficked to become enslaved. So they would ship them first to the Caribbean islands where their language would be destroyed, their culture would be destroyed, they would be deculturated, they'd be forced to learn European words. Of course, the first word that was taught was what? Master. No accident. Yes, no. So they are beaten, tortured, traumatized, terrorized until they learn to be good, quote unquote, slaves. This is what the Caribbean islands were for. This was called, look at this exonerating word, seasoning. How sweet. How dare you? It's called seasoning. To exonerate this evil, wicked, barbaric behavior. It's also called the breaking in process. So first, humans were trafficked into the Caribbean because they're small islands. There's no place to escape, no place to run. And they are trafficked and programmed, indoctrinated, terrorized into being good slaves, then shipped off to the mainland North America, Central America, and South American countries, and able to enrich Europe and Caucasian countries all around the world. Okay. By the 1800s, since the human trafficking never stopped, in many places in the United States, blacks now outnumber whites. So what does that mean? Caucasians are scared. So they increase their weaponry. They increase their ability to stay in power and control through violence and through force. That's what we see right now to this day. See, history is what tells us how we got here. If you know history, you know why things go down the way they do. That's why racism has programmed us to hate history, because we don't know the truth. Because once you know the truth, you can fix all that. Okay. So now racism continues. The wealth of Europeans around the world is growing and growing and growing. That's why the top 10 wealthiest nations to this day are those European nations that colonized and enslaved us. However, something else is on the rise now in the hemisphere. So something else is on the horizon, and that is industrialization. People are now beginning to realize that mechanization is more profitable than the plantation. People can make more money with factories and machines than they can with enslaved labor. Not only that, machines don't revolt. Machines don't rebel. Machines don't protest. Automation. Machines don't fight back. Machines don't resist. So America realizes we need to move into industrialization. And here comes that word America loves and doesn't want us to use. The Industrial Revolution occurs. Now, when the Industrial Revolution occurs, the people who are getting rich from plantations in the South are very upset. They don't want that. The machines are being built in the North. So there's a war. None of this war has anything to do because folks love black people. That's a lie. None of it has to do with anything about Abraham Lincoln loved black people. Abraham Lincoln enslaved and raped many, many human beings. This is all about capitalism, money, profits. So this is all about moving from a less productive, profitable system, the agrarian plantation system, to a much more profitable system, industrialization. So he moved from enslavement capitalism to industrial capitalism. Okay, we're getting through this. However, 13th Amendment eventually came along and it ended slavery. So, at this point, remember the 13th Amendment ended enslavement capitalism, not Abraham Lincoln, not the Emancipation Proclamation. That's a racist lie. But that does two things. So not only does it liberate all the Africans, guess what? It turns them into liabilities and targets. So imagine you have amassed millions of dollars in human assets through human trafficking and enslavement. You have millions of dollars invested. Here comes the 13th Amendment. Guess what? Your millions of dollars of investment turn to what? Millions of problems. You are so angry and upset. You hate black people now. And not only that, since black people are no longer considered private property, they now become expendable, or another word that everybody can understand, killable. So now the movement is to kill as many black people as possible, or ship them off, ship them back to Africa. That's why the country of Liberia was started by the American Colonization Society, to get as many black people out of the United States as possible. First, they were trying to get rid of all the so-called freed Africans so that they could not complain and protest about their brothers and sisters being enslaved. But they didn't all go back to Liberia because they stayed here to fight to free the other brothers and sisters. In the meantime, enslavers decide that we now have to kill these Africans because, as we said earlier, black people are the most skilled people on the face of the American continent, in North America. So because we are now skilled, because we've been doing all the labor, we have all the information, we are major threats. We are major competition. Here comes the licensing, certificates. All of these things now are developed to keep us out of different areas of the labor market. But most of all, our death becomes imminent. The Ku Klux Klan evolves to reinstate enslavement capitalism, or at least to kill as many black people as possible. So now we have more villainization of black people, so that the terrorization under KKK terrorism is condoned, is sterilized, is sanitized. So the annihilation of black people continue. Do not let it go. Be clear that the membership of the Ku Klux Klan includes so-called people that are now considered police, all the businessmen, because they're upset they've lost their businesses, and so-called political leaders and officials. That's the KKK membership. Men, women, children, everybody who is upset from losing money now is joining the Ku Klux Klan to join in to kill, lynch, annihilate, mutilate, torture black people. And to sanitize this, to rationalize this, to validate this, of course, we have to continue with the reinforcement of the myth of white supremacy, so no one is upset that blacks are killed, annihilated, terrorism. Nobody will ever think that Black Lives Matter, so we have all the language that is developed to make sure nobody cares about our lives. We're just niggas, right? Not just blacks, all first world peoples and indigenous peoples are slaughtered and treated like this. So from 1865, from the elimination of enslavement capitalism to 1965, 100 years of lynching black folks ensues. Approximately 1,000 black folks are lynched a year. Only 10% are recorded. You can look at the red record, 100 years of lynching, and Without Sanctuary, all great books to look at all that. Right here at the Concord BART station in the right here that they would lynch black people in the Concord BART. People were lynched here in the 1900s. We act like all this happened a long time ago. It didn't. I've been tracked down and hunted by the Ku Klux Klan and dogs in my lifetime. These things did not, and we just saw the brother back east who was hunted and tracked down by the Klan. These things still go on because we are still hated, because we are not profitable to capitalism anymore. Now we become a problem, we become a threat, we become competition. So racist images, racist language continues to abound, and that's where we are today. So that's why we have been given the words white supremacy, so that we believe we're inferior and that our lives should not matter and that we should not care about our exploitation. We're given the words equality, so that racism always reminds us we are inferior and we have to do something to be as good as white people. We're given the words entitlement, privilege. I call all that narcissism, spoiled brat syndrome. I don't use any of that vocabulary. We're given the words justifiable homicide, so that the more we are annihilated, we call it justified. We have to stop using all those words. Slave, ex-slave, affluenza. All of these things are used to exonerate racism, to perpetuate white psychopathy. And remember, psychopathy is a mental disease. You kind of don't know you have it when you're crazy. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that, because I don't want people taking that the wrong way. When you're a psychopath, you don't know you're a psychopath. So you have no care and concern of other people because you're a psychopath. So we've gone from, in this country, from the New World, it's on your dollar bill, e pluribus unum, one out of many, novus seclorum, New World Order. We've gone from enslavement capitalism to industrial capitalism. Now we are in the age of cyber capitalism. I call it cyber slavery. But it's all capitalism. It is a system which glorifies capital, profit, money, things, assets are more important than people. Capitalism. Of course the people are upset when storefronts are destroyed because capitalism is about capital, not people. Psychopathy. George Floyd isn't more important than a building. That's capitalism. Capital is the most important thing. So it's no problem water hosing black people, sticking dogs on them, beating them down, sending out the military, because psychopaths don't care. And right here, I want to give you one of Dr. King's quotes, because Dr. King's history has been bastardized in this country so often. You have little children who think Dr. King was some guy who went to bed and slept and had a dream. Because America wants to throw that "I have a dream" speech in our faces, because it doesn't want us to see who Dr. King really is. And I'm going to give us two quotes by Dr. King today so we're very clear. This is one of Dr. King's quotes, which I love. America takes necessities from the many in order to give luxuries to a few. Takes necessities from many to give luxuries to a few. That's who Dr. King was. He was talking about capitalism. That's why he was killed. All of this has been done. All of this divide and conquer has been done to protect the myth of white psychopathy. Because as long as we...
The myth of white supremacy.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. The myth of white supremacy, which is white psychopathy. We're all fighting each other now. We've all been trained to hate each other, and we're so busy hating each other that we're not noticing what's really going on. So thanks to divide and conquer, 10% of the world's population, you didn't hear me, 10% of the world's population now owns and controls 90% of the global resources. 10% controls 90%. Okay.
What about the other quote?
Oh, I'm going to get to it. Okay. Give me a minute. Okay. So, what do psychopaths have to do? They have to protect their wealth, protect their riches, protect their racist psychopathy. So, what do we have now? We have police departments that are designed to protect and serve. But we forgot to really state clearly what's being protected and served. So let me tell you,
right.
Protect and serve means to protect racism, serve the interests of capitalism. When you know that, everything makes sense. It's okay to kill black people because we're protecting racism. And you better not harm a building or a structure because we have to serve the interests of capitalism. And that's what the police have become, the instrument to reinforce this concept of protect and serve. So the police departments now are receiving all of this weaponry, all of this military transfers are happening so that the police departments can protect racism, serve the interests of capitalism. That's what this urban shield military buildup has been all about. The urban shield, training the police to combat citizens. Us, citizens. America hates us. Urban shield is being, every year they're trained for urban warfare, how to kill people in cities and in the streets. All those gun shows that we see going through town, all of this military buildup was to protect racism, serve the interests of capitalism, and make sure that the status quo remains the status quo. But what's different this time? As my daughter Kehinde said yesterday, the pandemic. Now, people aren't distracted. People are at home observing. And today, unlike back during the days of the first pandemic, the Bubonic Plague, things are being filmed. people actually get to see things. This is the first time that a lot of people are beginning to actually believe what they see. So we cannot hide behind the lies of seeing what I believe anymore, because too much of the truth is coming out. So this all started with the pandemic, COVID-19. This all started with the pandemic of the Bubonic Plague and Europeans' thrust of capitalism and colonization to get rich. And COVID-19 is destroying all of that wealth. It is allowing people to wake up and smell the coffee, smell the roses, and see what's actually going on. So just as the American Revolution, there's that word again, of 1776, united 13 separate colonies into one United States of America, we must let this pandemic of COVID-19 unite us, this revolution, this American revolution, to unite us into one HUE-MANE race.
Say that, Mommy. Do you see why I was excited? Oh my God. See how she wrapped that up this right there.
And we all have this genius. We just have to stop using the Lord. Stop using the Lord. Think outside the box.
That's right.
Critical thinking.
Open
your eyes and start
for those
seeing what you
persons who are not here, what is Lord, Mommy?
Oh, listen, accept, regurgitate, defend. Stop that. So listen, black folks don't matter. Regurgitate it. Black folks don't matter. Defend it. I told you black folks don't matter. Why are they out there protesting? And we defend it, we regurgitate it all the time. Stop that. Better late than never. Listen, analyze, test, evaluate. If the things we are doing do not promote justice, humanity, compassion, can't have that unless we eliminate racism, genocide, white psychopathy. So here we are. And I want us to be very comfortable with words. I know, we have to learn to take our power back. We've been afraid to speak up. Well, me. A lot of people are. But remember, I was young and dumb. I had to get woke. Somebody had to come along and start talking to me. Luckily, I listened, or I would still be asleep, and I would still be believing that. I never believed that. But anyway, I wouldn't be questioning so much. So let me tell you about the power of words. It's okay to learn and say new words. I know some people feel very uncomfortable with the words white psychopathy, and I want to assure you this has nothing to do with white people. It's not about white people. It's not about Caucasians. It's about psychopathy. Unfortunately, racism is Caucasians calling themselves superior and supreme against all of the first world peoples. So let's be comfortable with these words. When I was growing up, you couldn't say the word pregnant. Nobody said pregnant. That was a forbidden, taboo word. They would say, with child. You couldn't even see beds together on the screen, even in the cartoons. But now we can say, pregnant, it's no problem, right? When I was growing up, everybody said, the C word. They got the big C. The big C. I used to wonder, what on earth is the big C?
What was the big C?
But now we can all say it. Cancer.
Oh.
Cancer. Nobody said cancer. It was taboo. Well, guess what? Even though we've been forced to say white supreme, guess what words now we feel are taboo? Psychopathy. Say it with me, it's okay. Psychopathy. And let's define it one last time.
Yes, please do.
Psychopathy. An infantile, narcissistic mental disease of extreme egoism. Extreme narcissism. A total disregard and lack of concern for the social, civil, and human rights of others. And most importantly, don't forget, it is a failure to learn from the past. That's why we keep repeating this insanity. It's psychopathy. Don't be afraid to speak the truth, because this is the only thing that's going to set us free. Stop saying supremacy. Say psychopathy. And all the other words. Is my grandson going to get on? Are you going to get on the screen?
He's being nosy.
And notice how, we're not afraid to speak the truth around children. Because if children don't know the truth, how are we going to fix this? Which brings me to one little example. Let me go back to Wall Street real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me
but can I give you an example?
Yeah. Please.
So last night, I was talking to my youngest daughter, Sassafras, who is 8 years old. And and we call her Sassy for short. So Sassy is,
excuse me.
Sassy was on her iPad playing Roblox. And she goes, "Oh no, I'm cuffed." And I said, "What does that mean?" And she goes, "I'm handcuffed. Somebody just handcuffed me." I said, "Why are you handcuffed?" And she said, because I'm in jail." I said, "Why are you in jail in a game?" She goes, "Because the game is Prison Break and it's trying to break out of jail." I said, "Who made that game?" And she goes, "I don't know." I said, And she said, and Sassy is very observant. She's very observant. I said, And she said, "Mom, why'd you say I said, "Because it sounds like to me that game is programming children to be fine with being in jail and going to jail. And I have a problem with that."
I know that's right.
So look, you got to talk to your children. Yep. Because if you don't talk to them, something is programming them. And if you're not calling their attention to what's happening, then they're up and be adults. Things are happening to them which feels like it's outside of their control. I'm not going to allow some device and some game and some people, I don't know, program my child. I'm going to call her attention to it. Now, I'm not saying don't allow children to play games, but I am saying when you see something, ask them questions.
Immediately.
Why do you think, ask your children, why do you think adults created a game where the objective is, why are you in jail in the first place? What is happening here? Use critical thinking and critically analyze everything as you speak to your children, as they're doing. And it's not to say, no, you can't play that, but you do need to teach them how to critically analyze what they're watching, the games that they're playing, what people are telling them, what people are saying. That's how we build more humane, by teaching them how to critically analyze what it is that's happening around them. So, that was just like, it wasn't like, "Taiwo, go have a deep conversation with your daughter." No. She's sitting next to me playing her game. I looked at it. She said she was cuffed. I asked her a question. I'm like, "Well, why are you handcuffed? Why are you in jail? Why did some adult think it was okay to create a game out of all the things you could do, all the things you could create a game to teach children how to break out of jail?" I said, "Well, to me it sounds like they're programming you to be okay with being in jail, and I have a problem with that."
That's right. Another example, one day, my daughters came home from school. It was elementary school. And they said, "Look, Mommy,
I'll never forget that.
we have a new dance. A new dance." I said, "Oh, what's the name of that dance?" "You have to talk with your children. Have conversations." "Oh, Mommy, the name of that dance is the WAP." I said, "Excuse me? What did you call that?" They said, "Oh, it's the WAP." I said, "Hold it. Let me tell you what WAP means." And then I told them that WAP was a derogatory word that racism and white psychopathy invented to demonize Italian people. Don't use the word WAP, sweetie. Let's call it another name. Let's make up another name. And when you go back to school, you teach all the children the new name of the game. And you tell your friends, we're not going to call it WAP because it's rude to other human beings. See how much power that took? Only a little bit of power can change the world. A little bit of time. We don't have to have deep conversations, get on mad and angry and stern. Just call every racist elephant that you see. Call it. There's an elephant. There's a racist elephant. Stop pretending this racist elephant is not in the room.
And even when it seems like our children aren't listening, they are.
They're listening.
They'll recall something that you say, you won't even know that they're paying attention. We were reading last night, and we're reading my mom's book, Recognizing and Resolving the Roots of Racism. I'm reading it with my daughters, and I'm reading through the book, and they're listening. I'm asking questions, right? And they're answering questions. But I looked over, Sassafras, Sassy hat.
Oh, she's running up the stairs now.
You hear her going, "No!" She's running up the stairs. She had two.
It's okay, Sassy.
It's okay.
You're good.
She had two Nerf, what are they called? Darts, bullets?
Yeah,
you know the things that come out of Nerf guns, right?
Okay.
She had one stuck in each nostril. One here, one here. So I'm reading, I'm asking questions, they're answering questions. I turn around, got totally distracted. Look, I was distracted by him. She wasn't. She was still answering questions, but it totally threw me. So look, even when it seems like they're not paying attention, they are. So don't feel like if you're talking to them and they're not responding a certain way or they're not sitting still and quiet, like don't think that what you're saying is not going through. It is. They, they do things differently. I understand she is 8 years old and she's living in her imagination probably 90% of the time, and that is perfect. Okay.
And that's great.
But she's listening and she's learning and she is understanding concepts, because when I ask her questions, she can give me an answer like that.
And they're intelligent. They think more than we give them credit for. And this culture does not give children the credit for being geniuses. They come here geniuses. We destroy their genius by saying stupid stuff to stop asking me so many questions.
Or talking down to them like they can't understand English.
They're very intelligent.
Talking baby talk.
Talking baby talk to them.
Down.
So everything that we have been talking about this week is about epistemology. That's another word that we are not given privy to in the miseducation system. What is epistemology? It's the origins of your knowledge. How do you know the things you know? Who taught you you have to buy turkeys in November? Who taught you you have to cut down trees and drag them into your house every December? Who taught you you have to who taught you you have to overspend on the 1st of every year? Who taught you you have to go out and buy chocolates and pay 50 times more for roses on the 14th of February? Capitalism taught you all of these things. Who taught you black folks were inferior? Capitalism. Who taught you that white folks are superior? Capitalism. Because capitalism needs to make sure we don't care about the humanity of other people. Capitalism needs us to dehumanize each other in order to validate their exploitation. Everything we have been taught, we need to rethink it. That's why I call thinking outside the box. We have to stop the lard, start using our critical thinking skills, our skills of independent thought, and start acknowledging the truth of what's really going on around us so that we can save our race. What is that race? The human race. And I'm going to read this quote I love by Dr. King.
Yes,
I love this quote. I hope I can see it.
Can you see it, Mom?
I can see it.
Okay.
This is Dr. King. This is the Dr. King they don't want us to know, but this is my favorite quote by Dr. King. Love this quote. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, then the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. We can't let that happen. That's the real Dr. King. That's why he was killed, because he was getting in the way of capitalism. I'm out of breath.
Are we ready for questions and comments?
So we tried to get that 700 years into 17 minutes. I think I went over. But now you have a good idea of why things are the way they are, okay?
Tried to get it squeezed in like my waist trainer. Waist trainer's life. I'm so silly.
Okay.
All right.
First comments. Lionel says, Mommy's doing something, son.
Wait,
Lionel says, hello, dynamic trio. I'm sad already. This is the last installment. And then Kathy
So you gotta
says,
share it on YouTube. Share
and
it,
then
please.
Kathy says, we want more. We want more.
Well, I'm editing the book. I wrote the book 35 years ago. I've learned so much more.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then
35. I'm editing the book as we speak.
Fawn said she loves us.
Oh, hey, Fawn.
And then Lionel said, did you just say 17 minutes? LOLOL.
See, that's our
that
time. I
into
want y'all to
17.
know that Lionel is always timing.
She squeezed 700 minutes of, 700 years of history.
Into I don't know how many minutes.
Into-
How many minutes was it, Lionel?
Look, it wasn't 700. You know, it's not 700. You know that for a fact.
Darren Sewell said, thank you, my sister, for the clarity, wisdom, and knowledge.
Aw.
And then...
And make sure your children go to history class and you start talking to them about that history.
About all the
That's
stuff
how we
they're not
got
learning.
here. Yes. That's why I love history. I love history.
I love
oh my gosh.
I'm a history geek.
It's just amazing. And when you look at the world in history, pretend you're a detective. Start thinking like a detective, because then you'll start looking at things differently. That's what we need, to start looking at things differently.
And make it make sense. So, like, for my students, do you want to go comments?
No, go for it.
Okay, so for my students, because I had so much fun with this lesson, and my students did too. So Kehinde and I, we teach what our credentials are for our performing arts, right? We teach dance, drama, chorus, performing arts, right? So I'm teaching drama and I'm teaching dance at a middle school. It became my responsibility to do the Black History Month assembly because the person who was heading up that assembly left to go teach at the elementary school. We have a K-12 campus, so she left to go to the school next door to teach at the elementary school, and I had helped her the year before she left. So then it was like, oh, who's doing Black History? I was like, I got this. Look, please, I will do it because look,
please let me do
I
it.
know somebody will steer these babies wrong. So here's the thing. I love this school. So the dynamic or the makeup of our school is 76% of our student population is Spanish speaking, right? So, and we have, and maybe like 15 or so % is African American, and then the rest is like some combination of other stuff. But I don't think we have, no, it's a Tongan and Asian and some other
multi-ethnic, multicultural. Don't say mixed. Mixed is for peanuts.
I'm sorry, not a,
no, that's just not my words. But I feel you.
So,
yes.
but I don't think we have one Caucasian student.
Yeah.
Not one.
We don't either.
Not one. So I knew that in order for the students to understand why we're doing a Black History Month assembly, I had to make it relevant to them, because they don't understand that the reason we even have a Black History Month celebration or Latino Heritage Month is because the myth of white supremacy, white psychopathy, tells us that people who are not of Caucasian descent are not important.
And we have no history. And we have no culture. Seriously,
so,
that's psychopathy.
It's psychopathy. So I knew that before I could even present the stuff teach them the things that we were doing in the assembly, so teach them the dance, the choreography, teach them the poems that they would be reciting. Before I could even get to that information, I had to teach a history lesson.
That's right.
So I had to start with 3.5 million BCE, first common ancestor, Australopithecus afarensis in the Olduvai Gorge in Africa. I started there. In Southern Africa, I started there.
Wow.
And because students today don't even know geography, I knew I couldn't even teach this lesson without first teaching geography.
That's right.
So I literally had my students be continents. I said, we're starting first with geography. Who wants to be Africa? When I tell you, when I told them that life started in Africa, do you know I had all these students who was like, I want to be Africa, I want to be Africa, I want to be Africa. I had one African American male student look at Latino student and go, you can't be Africa because you're not African. I said, oh no, wait, hold up. And I had my book with me. The book that's called Everyone is African. It's written by a scientist. And I said...
Talks about DNA and the Human Genome Project.
And how we all come from the same
Africans.
place. There's one human race, how race is not a real thing, right? So, and I pulled out my book. I said, oh no, how dare you tell her that she cannot be Africa? I held up my book and said, what does this book say? And he said, everyone is Canadian. I said, no, sir. I said, no, sir. It says everyone is African. So I had my students stand in the places where the continents were. I had to teach them about how the continents were all closer together and eventually spread apart. How life started in Africa, how the Africans migrated out of Africa during the different transcontinental migrations. How those migrations were responsible for populating other continents, right? And then I said, and then look, hey, you guys, science is a thing. This is how you pull science in. I said, hey, you guys, if you're, what is this in my skin that makes me brown? And they said, some of them, melanin. I said, what does melanin do? And they said, protect you from the sun. I said, exactly. It's why my skin is brown. It protects me from the sun. These curls in my hair.
Happy napping.
Fabulous coils.
Happy napping.
Yes. I said, these curls protect my scalp from the sun. And then I said, so for the people who migrated out of Africa into Europe and got stuck in the mountains, what happens? I said, what happens in the summer if you're not in the sun? oh, you get light. I said, what happens if you're in the sun? You get tanned. I said, so what happens? Let's say for thousands of years.
10,000
years.
10,000
You're
years.
stuck in the snow and there's no bright sun. What do you think is going to happen? They said, you're going to get lighter. I said, you're going to get lighter. Your hair is not going to be as curly because it does not need to protect your scalp from the sun. I said, that process is called evolution.
And your eyes don't need to be brown, protecting you from the sun, so your eyes get lighter and lighter too. See, we're all human beings.
We're all human beings.
We just look different.
Right.
Like flowers. And that's cool.
And they're all flowers.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, but if you start from the beginning and then move your way up, then it makes sense. So once I explain evolution and the migration and all those things, how we get people in the Western Hemisphere, how the original plan was to go to the Western Hemisphere and enslave the people here, but because they had no immunity to European diseases, the Europeans then doubled back and went to Africa because the Africans had immunity to their diseases, because Africans and Europeans had been in contact for thousands of years, because Europeans were coming to Africa to study in their universities. When I explained that, yes, when I explained that, and I explained that Africa was plan B and the Western Hemisphere, so the people who are now here, who now speak Spanish, when I explained that they were plan A, all of my Spanish-speaking students said, oh,
yep.
Because had they not died, the history of the world would look vastly different. Mm-hmm. So when I explain how all of that is interconnected and how all of that is related, you should have seen my Spanish-speaking babies. We do a dance called Four Little Girls that honors the 4 girls bombed in the church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. It's done to Glory, that's sung by John Legend and rapped by Common. When I tell you, because I went through the history, when I tell you all my Spanish-speaking babies, and at the end of the dance, they walk out with their fists up.
That's right.
All my Spanish-speaking babies knew every word. It touched them here, and because it touched them here, it touched the audience, because they were invested in it, because they realized that Black history is world history, because they realized...
What did you say that again?
I said Black history is world history. They realized
Marvin X says as well.
They realized that Black history is world history. They realized that we are all one human race, and everything that happens to us doesn't happen to us individually, but because I took the time to give that history lesson, they understood that in a way that they've probably never understood that in any history class. In fact, they were like, Mrs. Seitu, you should be our history teacher. I was like, I teach dance and drama. That's what I'm doing. However, because it's relevant, I will pause the dance and drama lesson to teach history. And that's what we need to do. When something is relevant, it doesn't matter what our job descriptions are. It doesn't matter what our titles are. If someone needs information and we have the information, it's our responsibility to share that with them. Because facts, these same Spanish-speaking kids who walk around saying nigga, nigga, nigga all day, offending all of the Black students. Because this happens in our schools. This happens. Once I went through the history, they stopped using that word. But unless you provide historical context, it is going to be a losing battle when you say, hey, could you please stop using that word? They don't understand why it's offensive. It's just a word. They try to what? Defend it. Because they've listened, they've accepted it, they regurgitate it, and then they defend it.
Let me tell you why it's okay to say the word.
And who's not telling them it's not? Who's not telling them it's not okay? They have other teachers that listen to them use that word all day, every day.
Parents,
never tell them anything.
If I hear it on the street, I'll say, excuse me, young man, excuse me. Would you please not use that word? See, we have a responsibility to each other. When we know we're one village, one human family, we have to put people in check who are not acting like that. That's our job to do so. Excuse me. So history's crucial.
It's
if you don't know history, how can you teach it to your children? We're just a few generations away from not knowing anything. Geography, math. Have you looked at the test scores? They're horrible. Horrible. I have children who don't know. I had children who could not find Oakland on a map of California. It's horrible, which is why I've invented all these games to get us up to par so that we are better at history, we are better at geography, we are better at knowing who we are better at epistemology,
math. We're better
at math, at everything. So we have had the pleasure of doing this for the past 7 days. This is how we have been protesting white psychopathy What, sweetie?
Mr. Dittman had a question.
Oh, yes.
Please forgive me, guys. I'm skipping over a lot of the comments so that I can get to the questions because it is past 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Dittman says, why do white people think it's okay to take things from people of color?
Because they've been...
I'm not sure when he joined.
Yeah.
I'm not sure at what point.
Because that's colonization. That's the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears.
Yeah.
The little white girl gets to go in and eat their food, take their beds, do everything. And instead of protecting the bears, what do children learn? Kill the brown people.
Children learn
protect the white people.
That it's okay that Goldilocks can break in their house.
Jack in the Beanstalk, he gets to go and take whatever he wants, and it's okay. See, we're taught these things consciously and subconsciously
from a very young age.
And if you believe the insanity that whites are supreme, that's the answer right there. All these papal bulls, which we don't talk about, the Christian papal bulls, which said white people are supreme, blacks are savages, Indians are savages, therefore we have the right to go and take everything from them and kill them. That's the papal bulls of Christianity. That's a whole other story we don't have time for. History is crucial. It teaches us to hate people who are not white so that we can exploit them easily and not defend them when we see it going on.
Right, because we've been vilified.
And that kind of answers Ms. Freeberg's question, which was, how did the KKK become the white supremacists we have today? As a non-racist person, it baffles me that people can still be racist today, even though we live in such a diverse country.
Yeah, but we still use the words to reinforce and promote it.
Right.
Of course it's going to happen. We haven't stopped using the language that perpetuates it, reinforces it, and sanitizes it. That's why we have to stop using those words. Don't ask for equality. Can't be equal. So it's up to us to take responsibility for a lot of this.
And it's what is the word that's in your introduction? I was reading it last night with the girls. It's not it's subliminal.
Oh, it's subliminal.
It's subliminal messaging. And Sassy asked me, and this is how I know she's paying attention, she's 8 years old. She said, Mom, what is subliminal? I said, it's something that you learn on a subconscious level. So if I'm always using the word black or dark with a negative connotation,
what do you learn?
What do you learn? That anything that's black or dark, even the people, are negative.
Especially the people.
Especially the people. If I'm constantly using the word white or light in a positive way, you learn, and that is on purpose. That's not by accident. You learn that white and white people are sanitized, they're holy,
That's right.
They're clean, and they're pure. And that is not, it's not accidental that we attach those things to the definition of colors. Colors are neither negative nor positive. They're neutral. They're neutral. So to attach anything negative or positive to a color is ridiculous.
It's psychopathy.
It's psychopathy. So all these things are taught on a subliminal in a subliminal way, on a subliminal level, so that by the time we're adults, we've heard it over and over and over again. It's subconscious. We've accepted it. It's not at the forefront of our minds. And unless you have someone like us going, hey, I need you to think about this a different way, it's never gonna be pulled to the forefront of your mind.
And whatever you repeat, you perfect. Unfortunately, we are repeating racism, white psychopathy, the myth of white supremacy. We repeat it every day. That's why it is perfect now. This didn't start yesterday. This has been going on for hundreds of years.
Hundreds.
It's going to take us a while to eliminate it, but the weapon's right here. Right there. They don't have to go out buy anything. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to get dressed, go get anything. They don't have to order, Instagram anything. We have the power. Just go ahead and use it. For example, I had someone tell me, oh, well, I just love this affinity group because, I don't see color. I'm colorblind. How dare you not see my pretty chocolatey color? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You have to speak up. Don't let something just pass and you not say anything. Oh, I was hurt. I didn't get the job because I was black. Lie. You didn't get it because of racism. We have nothing to do with stop blaming ourselves. We have been taught to blame the victim as opposed to the victimizer. All the things we say, the way we say them, we've been programmed, indoctrinated, brainwashed. We've got to eliminate the brainwash, the indoctrination, the epistemology. So you have to stop and think about it to do it, or else you just go on with the lard.
Rachel says, how would you explain, I guess we kind of touched on this already, how would you explain white psychopathy to younger people or teenagers who have been taught history the wrong way since they started school?
Well, I remember that book, The Battle of the Butter People, the Butter Battle, where one people buttered their bread on the top, the other people buttered their bread on the bottom. We're better than you because we butter our bread on the top. Well, we're better than you, we butter it on the bottom.
The voices. So,
what happens is, because that epistemology says, I'm better, you're worse, then they start deciding, well, we're going to treat people who say that they're better than the others. So, if you give an example, I would have done it with little babies. I would do it with dolls and teddy bears. I would take a white doll and say, well, I'm white, I'm better than you. And a brown bear, well, I'm a brown bear, and I guess I have to believe you. Or, I don't know exactly what the circumstances are. Don't just be afraid to go in with the truth, period. Just go straight in there with the truth, okay? Don't pity-pat around it. Don't minimize it. Don't use any euphemisms. Don't color code it. Don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah, don't sugarcoat.
Just be honest.
And Miss Freeberg doesn't sugarcoat.
No one is better than anybody else. Therefore, we don't need equality because we are all wonderful.
And I will go in with the definition of psychopathy. And you might have to define a few of those words in the definitions, but they're perfectly capable of understanding what that means.
And they hear it. Ego. All about me. Me.
They know what it means.
Mine. It's all about me. No, it's about us. I'm number one. God bless America, nobody else. All that insanity that we have learned. Unlearn it. Undo it.
Fawn says, with Juneteenth coming, combined with what you have been sharing with us and what is currently happening, is there a new insight that we need to have in this year's commemorations? It doesn't feel like we need to address this year per usual.
Well, I think differently than, I'm always thinking outside the box, and I've always had a problem with celebrating enslavement. So Juneteenth is the celebration that initially went in Galveston, Texas, where the Africans there were enslaved long enough to harvest the crops. So enslavement, capitalism had ended, but no one told them,
right? Because
the enslavers wanted the work to continue. So later on in June, they don't know a date, that's why it's called Juneteenth. So in the middle of June, they eventually found out, you mean slavery's over and we're free? So that's Juneteenth. My thing is, that pisses me off. That people were enslaved longer than they need to be enslaved. I don't see it as a date or an event to celebrate. I see it as something to protest and further talk about genocide, white psychopathy, and racism. So I look at it a little differently than most people.
She also says, give thanks, have been working with my students on looking at psychopathy versus supremacy for show.
Yes.
That shit blows their mind.
Totally different. And these aren't definitions I created. This is English. This is what the English language says, not Miss Kujichagulia. This is the English language. Go to your Google phone, search it. Go to a dictionary. Look at all these things. This is what I learned by doing research. Years and years, decades upon decades of cross-referencing, painstaking research, traveling around the world, sitting with elders and scholars.
That part, sitting with elders.
Sitting with elders. That's why society today wants to keep the youth away from elders, starting all these youth groups, youth organizations, children teaching children, so that it disconnects them from the history. Because the history, the truth, is what's going to save us. The elders are crucial.
We need the elders.
Crucial.
Rachel said, Kehinde, have you thought of having your mom come in and teach a PD at Fremont? A lot of our staff doesn't understand what it's like for our students and experience what they go through. I've thought of it. I've not suggested it because a lot of our staff feel like they already know everything. And I am not going to sit and argue with people who think that they already have it figured out. Now, if someone wants to have a conversation and they're open for learning, yes. But when other people, when people feel like they know it all, and you know, you like me, Rachel, but a lot of our staff don't, and that's fine with me. I'm fine with that. So if they feel like they need help, yes, then by all means, I will suggest it. If they think that they got it, I'm gonna let them keep thinking that till they figure out they don't. That's just how I personally deal with people. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah, don't argue. I love that about my religion.
Don't ever argue.
Never argue. It takes two to argue. Just don't be one of them.
Don't argue.
Walk away.
Yeah.
Just walk away. So,
let me see if there's any more questions. We have got
to start reading books, folks. We've got to start reading books. Okay, I know it's about time.
Most of the other, I'm looking for questions.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you all for joining us.
There's a lot of affirming comments, though. That's good.
Thank you. Please share this information.
Please share it with somebody.
I do everything I can to share this with my children, to share this with my grandchildren. I've got to get all this out of my head, and we've got to get it in our heads. We've got to know it, so when the electricity goes off, it doesn't die in your phone.
Yeah.
We've got to know this, that when the electricity goes off, it doesn't die on your flash drive. We have to know this like we know our names, like we know the batting averages of famous baseball players, like we know the dunking averages of, I don't know any of that. See, I know about white psychopathy. I don't know who plays baseball, basketball. I don't know who any of the designers are. I could care less what the fashion industry says.
Yeah.
I focus on my purpose on the planet, which is eliminating racism. All of us have a purpose on this planet, irrespective of your job title, irrespective of your occupation, irrespective of your pay scale, irrespective of how you look. We all were put here on this planet, in this day, in this time, to fulfill a certain purpose. Look in the mirror and find out what yours is, and fulfill it.
I'm sorry. And speaking of purpose, anything that you dedicate your time to, or and I'm not saying you cannot, enjoy being entertained and all those things. But in terms of anything that you're spending a large portion of your time to, or your finances, make sure it's purposeful. I'm saying this because I had a conversation with my younger sister right before this, and she was like, I want to go to Washington. And I was like, for what? And I'm thinking she meant Washington State. She was like, I want to go to Washington on August, I don't even know the date, 27th, 28th. And I'm like, for what? Why? And she goes, I want to go for Cameron. I want you to turn that down, please, and thank you.
You hear Auntie talking. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And she goes, I want to go for the anniversary of the March on Washington.
The 57th anniversary, Taiwo? Which is so random and weird.
I said, wait a minute. Is this the one that Al Sharpton is doing? She goes, yes. I said, so here's the issue I have with that. And I said some more things that I'm not going to, I'm going to just cut to the point. I said, here's the issue I have with that.
You okay?
I said, so it's problematic during this time, a time where several people have been out of work and are short on funds. Now you're making this call for people to come to Washington. They got to spend money to get there.
COVID-19.
I haven't even mentioned the pandemic yet, right? They got to spend money to get there. You got to spend money while you're there to stay there, because unless you got somebody in D.C. who's willing for you to, bum it up on their sofa or something, you got to spend money to get there. You got to spend money while you're there.
And you're going to buy some clothes because you want to buy sharp. You're going to spend a ton of money.
Spend money to come back. In the midst of a pandemic around tons and tons of people who will not be socially distancing. I said, so you spend a bunch of money in a time where people don't have a lot of money. And then we're not socially distancing. There is still this thing called COVID-19 happening, this pandemic. I said, and then what? I said, what is going to happen after that? I said, it would be different if after that commemorative march, gathering, whatever you want to call it, if after that racism would magically cease to exist. But what are you accomplishing with that time and money spent? This is what I'm talking about. This is something purposeful.
This is what they're accomplishing. They are infusing millions of dollars into the airline industry. You're infusing millions of dollars into the hotel industry, none of which we own. We're infusing millions of dollars into the fashion industry. To do what? See, at the end of the day, unless we're working on eliminating racism, genocide
and white psychopathy, it's useless.
We're wasting our time.
It's a waste of time.
We are helping perpetuate, not alleviate or eliminate the problem. That's why we are here. I feel like I can do more. I'm lying. I know I can do more sharing this information than going out subjecting myself to COVID-19. I respect the people who are out there. I respect you. I did my share of marching when I was younger. I'm too old for this now. Okay? I can't do it anymore. But what I can do is still pass on information to make us be better human beings. I can still pass on the knowledge of one human race so we can stop this insanity of divide and conquer, white supremacy, genocide, racism, white psychopathy.
So, and I know now that the fad is like, yeah, pro-black people will go. Okay, but before you spend your time, because time is valuable. Time is something we cannot get back, right? I value my time, and if I'm going to spend my time with anything, I got to look at what I'm giving up to spend that time. So
opportunity cost.
Right. Is this time I could be spending with my children?
Whoa.
Is this time I could be spending with my husband?
Whoa.
Is this time I could be spending bettering me?
Spending with my mom?
To further my purpose, to accomplish my purpose in life? What am I giving up to spend this time? So before you guys jump on, and what do I get at the end? So before we all just jump on a bandwagon as a feel-good moment, Stop. Look. Listen to your heart. Hear what it's saying. Stop.
Okay. Stop. Think about it.
Think about it.
Is it going to eliminate the insanity?
And if it doesn't, it's probably not worth. It's not worth your time.
Else.
It's not worth your time.
If it's not going to eliminate racism, maybe we should do something else. If it's not going to enrich us, maybe we should do something that does. Just think about the logic of what we are doing. Don't just jump on the bandwagon. Listen, accept, regurgitate, defend. Think about it. Analyze it. And if it is consciously, committedly resolving, eliminating racism, psychopathy, genocide, do it.
Yes.
Do it immediately.
Absolutely. Yes. Jump in.
Okay,
I think we answered all the questions.
Yep. I think we answered all the questions. This has been day 7. It is our last day. So it's not like you're never going to see us again. Like, you'll see us again at some point, just not on a daily basis, because it's tiring.
And we're giving you time to go buy the book, Recognizing and Resolving Racism, and read it. And by the time everybody does that, and I can finish all the games, we'll have my edited copy.
And you'll see us again.
Eventually be out. But read. You're at home. Read. Every home should have a library. Did you hear what I said? Every home should have a library. That should be one of your most honored possessions, your library. Then again, if you like us, instruments. Musical instruments.
Yep. Instruments and books.
Your most prized possessions.
Stuff in my house.
Other than the human beings in your life, your brain, are your instruments, your books.
So I think we answered everything.
Yeah.
We will put the name and the links to where you can purchase the book in the comments. Please, if you did not see 1 through 6, because this is the 7th out of 7 days of our series. So if you did not see 1 through 6, we have a YouTube channel. It's called Resolving Racism. All of 1 through 6 are already uploaded. And then today, after we finish, I will upload 7. So if you know of someone who's not on Facebook, couldn't get on today, didn't watch today, whatever, haven't watched the previous 6, please share this information with them. It's what we think and what we believe that's going to change our conditions. That's what's going to free us.
And we can link the YouTube.
I'll link the YouTube in the comments
as well as the link to the book, so that you can add it to your library.
Add it to that library, that home library, yes.
And don't just accept anything I'm saying. Go do some research.
It.
I always start my classes, my history class, by telling my students, go prove me wrong.
That's right.
I know you want to prove me wrong. Go do it.
Go prove it.
But in the process, I'm forcing them to go study and research.
Forcing them to read.
Prove me wrong. And plus, I get to learn more. Because don't forget, every teacher is a student. Every student is a teacher. We all have genius, magic, and purpose. Excuse me. Use it. Please use it to make the world a better place. Rid the world of not just racism, Genocide. Why psychopathy? Hey, I'm a female. I'm sick of sexism.
That's
hey,
it.
I'm an elder. I'm sick of ageism. We need to get rid of Islamophobia. We need to get rid of all the insanity that does not respect all of us. Notice I'm not saying the word equally. I don't use that insane vocabulary. Respect everyone. Don't have to love everybody. Let's just respect everyone. Respect ourselves. Learn as much as possible. Get rid of all of these isms that are destroying us. Call them what they are. No more euphemisms. Don't talk about race. Talk about racism. Don't talk about racial bias, inequity, equality. Talk about genocide, white psychopathy. Be clear. Name it. Claim it. End it. Racism.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Sante sana.
See you all later.
Bye.
Reagan
Couldn't
says
even on your face.
yes.
Say bye.
Uh-oh.
Wait, we need the
wait.
fabulous Kehinde to say bye. She's got on her big earrings. Come on now.
Big African earrings.
Do you see my big African earrings today?
She got on her
Beautiful,
gorgeous earrings.
gorgeous,
Got to get her in to
gorgeous.
say bye.
Sassy, you want to get in here? Take a
Bye,
picture?
guys.
Wait a minute, we got one more. Sassy, my granddaughter's coming in. Say hi, Sassy.
Say hi. 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 This is the one who has the nerve darts in her nose.
Thank you all. Love you. Love yourself.
Love you.
Respect
Bye.
others.